November 4th, 2025 work session and special session, which is our 25th voting session of the Mayor and City Council of Hagerstown, is now called to order. First up, we have a couple proclamations. First is the Children's Grief Awareness Day, and I'd like to have Stephanie Nally come up, please. Stephanie? Here's a proclamation. Children's Grief Awareness Day, observed nationally on the third Thursday of November, is an opportunity to raise awareness about the impact of death on children and teens and to show support for those grieving the loss of a loved one. And grief is a natural reaction to the death of a loved one, and children are not immune to the pain and confusion that often accompany loss. 1 in 5 children will experience the death of someone close to them before the age of 18. And these children often struggle with feelings of sadness, fear, anger, and confusion that can impact their emotional and developmental growth. And by recognizing this day, the City of Hagerstown seeks to support grieving children and their families by encouraging conversations about grief, promoting awareness of the resources available, and honoring the courage of young people who are coping with loss. And organizations, schools, family, faith communities, and caring individuals in Hagerstown and across the country are encouraged to see the children who are grieving and offer them understanding, support, and hope. Therefore, I, William McIntyre, Mayor, City of Hagerstown, hereby proclaim November 2025, November 4th, 2025, as Children's Grief Awareness Day. We encourage all residents to show their support by wearing blue, engaging in community education, and recognizing the needs of grieving children in our city. You want a microphone, or you want?
I think people can hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? I really appreciate this proclamation being signed. I run a small nonprofit who started to be able to help people who've experienced pregnancy and infant loss. And we've expanded over the years, and actually tomorrow I'm doing a presentation to legislators to potentially open a bereavement center in Washington County. That is the goal. So this is one step in being able to bring awareness and educating our community that no child should have to grieve alone. So I appreciate your support and recognition. And so on the third Thursday of every month of November, of every year of November, please wear your blue. So this year it's on November 20th. So please wear blue in honor of children. And I do have some papers here I'd like to leave with you that just show the importance of what childhood bereavement can do and the impacts of our community. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Stay up here.
Thank you. Thank you again. I appreciate it. My information is all.
I just need to know, so-
Yeah, I can provide additional information if needed. So, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thanks. Next up, we have Municipal Government Works Month. I have Scott, everybody else in our city here.
Don't be
Don't be
shy.
Employees.
Don't shy now.
Yeah. The city of Hagerstown was incorporated in 1762, and Maryland is home to 157 municipalities. And municipal government represents the most responsible level of government, allowing citizens to have direct access to elected officials. And in an effort to educate citizens about municipal government and the importance of their participation, the city of Hagerstown is proud to promote municipal government awareness, and municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents by providing excellent community-based services and helping to make Maryland a great place to live, work, and visit. Therefore, with the support of the City Council, I, William McIntyre, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, hereby join the Maryland Municipal League in declaring the month of November 2025 as Municipal Government Works Month in Hagerstown, Maryland.
No, we're good.
Anybody? Okay.
Here, picture. Right. Number one.
Nice try, Jim.
You know what's gonna go.
Yeah.
Time to get up. Right.
I stood up.
Yeah.
There we go. Good smiles. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2.
Okay, next up, we have the Vote 16 initiative.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, Zoe Burnett came in, as a matter of fact, right on cue. Came in last month or September and presented the Vote 16 initiative. I reached out to Barry Jackson because we do our municipal elections a little different than a lot of other municipalities do. Our municipal elections are run on the statewide ballot that the Board of Elections, Washington County Board of Elections, manages. Therefore, that our elections are governed under the statewide reform or statewide elections board that within Comar states that the legal voting age is 18. So for us to be able to allow 16-year-olds to vote, we would have to follow the state the state requirements, and the legislature would have to pass an initiative that would allow 16-year-olds to vote. Where the municipalities run their own election, they have the jurisdiction to allow 16-year-olds to vote. And the ones that Zoe mentioned, she's exactly right. They do allow 16-year-olds to vote, but they run their own election. We are under the statewide, so therefore it would take an act of the legislature to allow anyone under 18 to vote in a city election. I'm with the understanding that the Vote 16 initiative is not just Zoe, it is a statewide, it has really grown to a statewide program, and that they are actively lobbying the legislature for the 2026 year to make that a statewide initiative to allow people under 16 to vote. So technically, whether you wanted to or not, we are not regulatorily able to allow 16-year-olds to vote. We have to follow the state law. State law gets changed, then it will certainly be within the purview to allow 16-year-olds to vote. Any questions? Any questions with you guys?
Well, unless you decided to change the cycle.
We would have to change the cycle, and that would have to be a charter change to be able to do that, which is a whole other fun process. And we will be looking at charter review in 2026. So that, again, that could come up during those discussions.
Well, I just want to thank you, Scott, for bringing it back. I was one of those, one of the council members during my comments to ask for more information about this initiative. So you heard that. Continue to lobby. I know the group's already made contact with some state legislators. So wanted everyone to hear this backstory of, at least from Barry, from Board of Elections.
Well, how much, do we have sort of an estimate how much it would cost for the municipality to run their own election?
In Hagerstown, we still used the services of the Washington County Election Board. It was $60,000 per primary and per general.
Because we'd have to pay them for poll workers, and we'd have to create our own ballots and all that.
And they may not be willing to do that anymore, which is why
Right.
we went to the state cycle, one of
Yes.
the reasons.
Yeah, in fact, there was legislation where they were trying to get out of the local business. So that could be another opportunity at some point down the road.
I just want to say also, speaking off of Councilmember Burnett, I wanted to hear more, I wanted to learn more, I wanted to understand it more. And especially considering that a lot of our 16-year-olds carry the same responsibilities as our legal age to vote. Like if they can pay taxes and drive and even have children and all that in between, I definitely feel like it's something to look into, so.
And then just for the record, I'm still
hoping that you succeed with this initiative. I do have a question. Would it be possible to have them invited to MML, or is that something separate that she would have to do on her own?
It'd be something separate.
Okay.
There used to be, I know the school system used to do a kids vote. Do they still do that in the school system? Okay. Yeah, I know they used to have a special election within the school system for middle school and high school to vote, and that used to be a big thing. I have had kids in.
What would that pertain? Like,
It was just it was just going through the
oh,
exercise.
just kind of
to teach
giving
kids-
them an
yeah, to
idea of
teach
what it
kids-
is to be a registered voter.
Right, and they would have representatives come from the campaigns and talk to the kids, and it was more of an education process, and then they always published the results at that point. I don't recall that, it may still happen, I don't know, I don't recall seeing anything like that.
Well, thanks for bringing this, but yeah, I don't agree spending $120,000 to do this. And, you know, if anything, we can't afford that. And, you know, I think you should be 18 to vote. And I think the majority of residents I've talked to agree with that as well. So, and, you know, it's just opening a door to allow illegal aliens to vote like Frederick does in other cities. I don't support that. So, in the end of the day, you know, you can work on a campaign when you're 16, but I don't think you should vote. So, but I'm glad that you brought this information to us.
How would that open for anybody legal to vote?
Well, I mean, that's just one idea they push, 16-year-olds and illegal aliens like Frederick, and I don't support that. You know, I think you need to be a U.S. citizen to vote. I support common sense with that. You know, if anything, you can, you know, volunteer for a campaign, but I don't support amending the city charter and spending $120,000 for that. So,
Anybody else? Okay. All right, next up is the FY '27 preliminary budget for general fund agency contributions. We got Michelle Hepburn and Brooke Garber.
It's just gonna be. Yeah, okay.
Good afternoon. All right, so we're here this evening, and we had to take a step back because honestly, we're so used to seeing everybody's faces at the table, we forgot that this is your first October, the beginning of October into November. And so what happens, the end of October, beginning of November, Brooke and I come, we sit at the table, we say, okay, we're gearing up for fiscal year 27 budget. We have an agency contribution policy, and per that policy, we are required to sit here and ask two primary questions, right? We need to ask before we start moving forward with our budget, if you need to make changes to the number of agencies that we include in the policy for funding, as long as funding remains in the budget, those agencies would be guaranteed to receive something. Again, as long as funding in total remains there, and the total dollar amount to start with. So we took a step back, and Brooke brought copies if anybody is interested. It is a really short policy. It was developed years ago because, as you noticed throughout our budget deliberation process several months ago, a lot of energy and time is spent in what was happening in years past before we adopted an actual agency contribution policy, is we would spend a meeting, sometimes more than one meeting, talking about nothing except what agencies to keep in the budget and the dollar amount. And not that it's not an important component, and not that we don't want to continue to support these agencies, but during the overall budget deliberations, sometimes it's very hard to take away an entire meeting or two meetings to dedicate to this small amount, right? Because it's been $205,000 approximate for the many years since we've developed the policy. So we are here, and in our memo, we included the 8 agencies that's defined in our policy: Community Rescue Services, Hagerstown Municipal Band, Hagerstown Neighborhood Development Partnership, HNDP, everybody typically calls them, right? Maryland Symphony Orchestra, the Maryland Theater, Washington County Historical Society, Washington County Museum of Fine Arts, and Washington County Free Library. So those are the ones, and then what happens is, once we have this meeting, usually around Thanksgiving, we will send out memos to these specific agencies. We include a copy of our policy. We ask them to complete, if they're still looking to participate, their application. They provide information back, as well as they provide us their financial statements and budget. We send that all out in, again, right around Thanksgiving. We give them to the approximate first Friday in January to send that back to us, because then we try to incorporate things into our overall budget. And then we come back in March 31st, April 1st, this body gets the budget. It's in the budget. There's a section that has all of the agencies and how we have split the funding. And typically we have left it maintained the same year after year for each of the agencies, except for years like when we've had COVID and those we had to scale back. But again, it's not saying that you don't have additional opportunities to have discussion. It's just saying that per our policy, we're required to come here and say, do you wish us to do this differently? Is there anybody outside of these agencies? Are these agencies still good? And then just overall, typically we do $195,000 across these 8. We leave in $10,000 as a mayor and council contingency, understanding that you're still going to have reach out by nonprofits, because we have so many groups. And so they may reach out, and this body wants to have some leeway with being able to provide other agencies. For the past, our current year, fiscal year 26, the 5th year in a row, that money has been given to the Heart of the Civil War Heritage area. It started with $7,200, and we're up to, in the current fiscal year, giving them $10,000.
The entire contingency.
Which is the entire contingency. Just giving you feedback and information. And again, for Brooke and I, the process is, are you good with these agencies?
I'm good with these agencies. I just had a question. Is it open to other agencies to go ahead and apply for funding, or no? Is it just, are we at that 7 and we can't take any more?
So these are the 8, and we don't do, so when we did ARPA funding and we had a whole entire nonprofit program, that was open into the entire nonprofit group side. This we send to just these. It's not saying others can't send information in. Prior to this policy, we did contribute to agencies and provide to nonprofits way more than what's included on here. And I don't know if Councilmember Alshire was part of that. It took several meetings over an entire year to get to this level of where we were defining them, because it was more, for instance, the Hagerstown Municipal Band. The only funding that they receive is what we provide to them. That's it. And it originated as the city of Hagerstown Municipal Band, right?
So here's the 2 issues that we ran into previously, or our previous iteration of this. The first is, we've got a huge budget, and we spent a lot of time talking about, what amounts to less than a penny. And what was occurring was individual members of council, out of the hundreds of nonprofits that exist within our community, individual members of council were bringing forward at various parts and times of the year individual nonprofits that they had some personal affection for, supporting and bringing to the table and wanting to promote. And it's like, hey, if you give this person $5,000, I'll vote for your entity that wants $5,000. And that purse string is, one, not as infinite as, that mindset would believe it to be. And 2, the recognition that you're kind of giving away public tax dollars to nonprofits that by and large do very secular, individual things, that's really for the taxpayer to decide if they want to. So we sort of sat down and said, okay, what of all these entities? And the other thing is, there was an expectation, right? Once I got on the list, I'm on the list. I get to stay on the list. I get that same amount and get to ask for more year after year after year. So there was this lack of fortitude to remove anybody from the list, only to grow that list. I think the number when we finished was like $383,000. So we hit a tight fiscal year and we said, okay, what are we going to do? And I just simply looked at the list and said, what of these entities do we have on the list that aren't really of a secular nature, but rather provide something that is almost quasi-governmental? And when you look at things like the library or the Museum of Fine Arts, et cetera, you could almost argue that they are a fairly, governmental function, in their capacity, in terms of the service type that they provide to the community, or they're an entity that is really there strictly almost out of a city purpose. And so, I think that when we did that, the compromise was, okay, well, in good years, we'll have better amount for the contingency, and in bad years, we won't. And that contingency for be a finite amount that's set in there that you can bring up in the event that there are or is a need from a specific group that isn't some guarantee that it's going to be year after year, but the ones that are in there, is when you make the really hard decision to say, what, of these 7 base or core entities that are providing this sort of quasi-governmental function, are you really going to cut the library? Are you really going to cut, you know what I mean? And so that's, and every council is going to have whatever approach it wants to take to this. That's how we got to where we are today with what you see before you.
I think it's 8 agencies.
And I'm in agreement with the agencies that we have.
The other reason it was important was prior to this, the city would and could and did contribute to, maybe it was the same nonprofit. They would apply through our CDBG, through their public services application process. And that is an application process that is open to everybody, all nonprofits, right? So they could get funding through the city for our CDBG public services dollars, but then also get general fund agency contributions, which is our taxpayer dollars as well. And it became, just as he said, we had so much discussion, weren't able to get to some of the larger impact things in the budget, right?
Yeah, and I believe the municipal band, our funding is their only funding, right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
They get nothing else.
Right.
Okay, so if we're good with the 8, what about the total funding? Are we good with just an overall 195? And again, this doesn't mean that when we bring it back, you have to agree with how we have it allocated. You have your opportunity come April 1st to move that however you want. But this is just giving us parameters of things we know we cannot touch when we are attempting to balance for Scott's budget that we bring back, the city administrator proposed budget, right? So is the 205 still good? Is the 10,000 good for our contingency? And are you good there overall? Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, ladies. Never mind, that's it.
Can you hear us, Avery?
I sure can.
All right, next up, we have discussion about the opioid restitution fund. We have Avery Meyer, the program director for the opioid restitution fund. How are
Thank you. Good. How are you guys? Thanks for the invitation to speak with you all today, and I also very much appreciate the virtual accommodation. Like was said, my name is Avery Meyer. I'm the Opioid Restitution Fund Program Director at Maryland's Office of Overdose Response, which is under the leadership of Special Secretary Emily Keller. I'm going to plan to cover 4 main topics about the ORF with you all today. I'm going to start with some general information to kind of lay the groundwork about the settlement, and then I'll move into allowable spending with the funds, as well as our recommendations for spending at the local level and potential collaborators for you all. So to start, in 2021, the first legal settlements with pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors related to the roles these companies played in misleading the public regarding the risk of prescription opioids were finalized. Several additional legal settlements have been reached since then, and others remain in active litigation currently and might be finalized in the coming years. In Maryland, nearly 4 people lose their lives to opioid overdose every day. Opioid settlement funds are intended to redress these harms, and as such, we think transparency and impactful spending are of utmost importance. And us at Moore are the administrators of the ORF in the state of Maryland, and we're really happy to partner with subdivisions to ensure that these goals are met. There are 58 subdivisions that are party to the opioid settlement in the state of Maryland, which includes counties, cities, and towns. The funding is broken into 4 main streams. There are 2 state streams. So the first one is the state allocation, which is 15%. That is used at the discretion of the state. The second is the state discretionary abatement fund, which is also 15%. And that fund is required to be made available via grants. And then there are 2 streams that are related to local subdivisions who are party to the lawsuit. First is local direct funding, which is 25%. Those funds go directly from the settlement administrator to local subdivisions, so there's no pass-through at the state level. That money just shows up in subdivision bank accounts. And then lastly, there are targeted abatement grant funds, and that's 45% of the funding. Those dollars are first released from the settlement administrator to our office, and we release those funds to local subdivisions once they submit a local abatement plan, which outlines allowable spending that the subdivision plans to take. Currently, the city of Hagerstown should have received $184,296 in local direct payments as of July 1st of 2025. There's an additional $378,528 available as of July 1st, but those are targeted abatement grant funds, and so our office cannot release that until the city submits a local abatement plan and we are able to review and approve that. Payments for the ORF will continue through the year 2038. Between both of those local funding streams, the city of Hagerstown is expected to receive around $1.5 million. And that's based on current settlements. There are additional ones being negotiated now, so that number may change over time. I'll also note that a lot of the settlements have front-loaded payments, meaning that some of them pay out in 6 years instead of through 2038. And so it looks like there's a lot of money now, but that may slowly increase compared to like what you get in the first couple years of the settlement. We recently published a document called the ORF Primer, which kind of gives a like 101 on the ORF because it's really complicated. That's on our website, but I'm also happy to share that with this body after this meeting. And we also recently published our fiscal year 2025 report, which details all expenditures out of the ORF, both at the state and local level, and also includes some state allocations we've made for future spending. We're also working on a dashboard that will be available to the public that will detail all ORF spending and is required via legislation that passed this year. I'll go ahead on now to the allowable uses part of the discussion. So the Opioid Restitution Fund is governed by 2 main documents in Maryland in addition to state statute. The first document is called the State Subdivision Agreement. We refer this as the governing document of the ORF specifically in Maryland. So each state has a state subdivision agreement that was developed and governs how funds are going to be allocated in their state and also who the administrator of the funds is. It also details things for local subdivisions such as required reporting. Related to allowable uses, the state subdivision agreement states that all ORF spending in Maryland must be for future opioid remediation in line with allowable uses. There is a small carve out for that where local direct funds, 15% of those funds can be used for past opioid remediation, basically to reimburse the subdivisions for past opioid related spending that they may have incurred. However, it has to be for allowable uses under Exhibit E, which is what we'll talk about next. So Exhibit E is a document from the National Opioid Settlement, and under new state legislation, this is the basis for allowable spending in Maryland. It's a very large document and, in my opinion, casts a very wide net, but there are instances where it can be very specific. For example, when we talk about funding services, it specifies that funds should be used to serve people that either have opioid use disorder or have a co-occurring substance use and mental health disorder. I always highlight that to make sure people understand all ORF funds have to be spent specifically on opioid remediation purposes, and that language really exemplifies that. This document is a part of the settlement agreement at large and is not specific to Maryland or this administration. I really encourage folks to thoroughly review this document when they make plans for how they want to spend ORF funds to make sure it fits within an allowable parameter. because spending outside of Exhibit E is considered unallowable and can result in subdivisions being subject to enforcement by the Office of the Attorney General. I also strongly encourage folks to get involved and have a partnership with their local legal counsel when they are planning things in relation to Exhibit E. Our office is also happy to be a part of discussions about whether programs align with Exhibit E. We can't make final calls or decisions to you all of if it's allowable. You'll have to defer to your local legal counsel for that, but we're happy to be a partner as you plan for how to use funds to make sure things feel like they align with what is considered allowable spending. Next, I'll jump to our recommendations for local spending. Every year, the state subdivision agreement requires the secretary to publish recommendations to local subdivisions for ORF spending. These are non-binding recommendations, and so you're not required to follow them. It's kind of just an FYI looking at what is allowable and what are our priorities from the state perspective. These are things that we think might be good to prioritize. This year's recommendations were structured around our 5 priority pillars, which are prevention, harm reduction, treatment, recovery, and public safety. The recommendations were created from a variety of information sources. So we based some of it off of our strategic plan for the state related to overdose response, but also in that is public feedback from our outreach across the state and best practices related to opioid overdose prevention. Each recommendation you'll see has a citation that references the specific parameter under Exhibit E that makes it allowable spending. A general top-level recommendation that we gave at the top of that document is for local subdivisions to collaborate with their local health departments and or overdose prevention teams in spending decisions. So that'll be the next topic that I cover. Overdose prevention teams are required to operate in all 24 jurisdictions across the state of Maryland in order to receive block grant funding from our office. These meetings are open to the public and have representatives pretty much from any sector that touches overdose prevention. That includes health, social services, education, public safety agencies, which includes law enforcement, fire services, and emergency services, harm reduction programs, recovery support programs, treatment providers, and community and faith-based organizations. These meetings are required to happen at minimum on a quarterly basis, and they really are just meant to bring all of these folks together who are working on the same issue into the same room to collaborate and discuss any gaps in care that they think the group might be able to help address. They're also required to submit biannual reporting to us that shows the implementation of various substance use-related programming in their jurisdiction. So if you might be curious what gaps might exist in your jurisdiction, you can check the report out. It's on our website under the resources and then OPT tab. But again, also happy to share that with the group after this meeting. And I'll share for you all, Washington County's OPT is shared by the health department and has robust participation. Certainly happy to connect you all with them after this meeting if that's helpful. I'll also put out there, it might be useful to engage members of the community who work with folks who are impacted by opioids if you're trying to figure out how to use funds. For example, treatment centers, peer recovery specialists, recovery homes. We all know there's a lot of different people, agencies, businesses that touch this issue. And so I think anytime we can get public feedback on these funds, it's personally been really well received by our office when we've done that. So I always make that recommendation to locals. And lastly, in an effort to make sure funds and efforts aren't duplicated, I would recommend the city collaborate with the county if possible. The counties are actually required to host annual meetings with municipalities in their jurisdiction who participate in the settlement. And so that would help Washington County out as well if you guys were willing to come to the table and have a conversation with them. And also, I'm certainly happy to make sure you guys have the appropriate contacts for those if needed. That is all that I have. It was a lot of information, so I'm happy to take questions and also happy to be available to this group in the future, however I can be helpful. Thank you.
Hey, Reed, this is Mayor McIntyre. I got a couple, it's about the same question, but a couple parts to it. You did say that the money distributed, some money goes to the city separately, and we receive that in our fund, and some goes to the county as well, right?
Yes, so you guys are individual subdivisions under the settlement. And so the county is getting money and you guys are getting money. All of that's determined on a formula basis under the settlement. And so there's no like real overlap per se. Like you guys are getting funds independent of the county. You both are just subject to the same lawsuit, same settlement with the same parameters around spending and reporting. Does that make sense?
It does. And do you mind me asking how much does go to the county? You gave us our figures.
That is a great question. I can pull up our little tracker and let you know. Just give me 1 second. I can tell you they definitely get more than you guys, just because they're a county with more folks. Let's see.
Yeah, no, right here.
Okay,
I put you on
So-
the spot. Yeah.
that's okay.
Hey,
It looks
Brad,
like Washington.
Hey, Brad brought Michelle up.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure it's over $1 million. Go ahead, Avery.
Yeah, it is over $1 million. It looks like in total throughout 2038, they're expected to get a total of 15 million. And then through the end of 2025, it looks like they got about 1.7 million.
Okay, then, I mean, you answered some of my question at the end, so they're not, the county, well, we'll just say not Washington County, but every county's not mandated to help use their funds in the most affected areas. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, no. They are required to use the funds in allowable parameters of Exhibit E, but the discretion really lies with the subdivision because it's a settlement. They're entitled to the funds, and so as long as they're doing it in parameters that are legal under the legal settlement, they're able to spend those funds how they see fit.
So it's going to just require a conversation between us and the county, correct?
So each group
Okay.
has to be eligible, and Avery, with the largest portion of the abatement funds, there has to be a very detailed 5-year plan that is submitted to the state with things that you're reporting back, right? So if you say, I'm doing, I don't know, peer evaluations or something, I'm doing an additional person, you have to be able to come back and provide statistical information throughout that period. Am I correct, Avery?
Yes, yeah. So there's two things. The local abatement plan is every 5 years, and that is a proactive plan for how do we plan to spend money. That's what allows us to release that big chunk of money, the tag money. And then additionally, there's annual reporting that's required every year, which requires all expenditures to be reported on, and additionally does include performance metrics in order to ensure funds are being spent in an impactful and allowable manner.
Okay, that answers some of my question, I guess, but I'll just leave it at that. I'll let somebody else ask a question for now.
I think I have a more basic question about the funding. So during this litigation process, like, who made the determination that local governments were the best place to directly provide the funding to? Did we do that because we signed on to the litigation process, or was that a decision by the courts? That the money go directly to the fragmentation of local governments?
Fantastic question that I don't fully have the answer to, because I am not an attorney and was not a part of the settlement negotiations back then. But I do think that in part your point about it being purview to a settlement is that governments are then the ones who want to be entitled to the funds if they're signing on to a settlement. And the way that the ORF worked was in exchange for signing on to the state agreement, local subdivisions dropped their individual suits. And so my speculation is that that has something to do with it. There are certainly areas in Maryland and across the country where governments are deferring their funds to local health departments or other agencies that they feel are better suited to manage the funds. But that is, of course, up to the government because they are the ones entitled to the lawsuit.
Right. So if for some of you that will remember, the city entered into to their agreement, and we, by chance, were utilizing the same legal firm, which helped as Washington County. In the very beginning, finance and accounting, as well as our police department, provided, like, I want to say 17 massive binders of information. And as it progressed, right at the very, very end, the state attorney general's office contacted the mayor at the time here. And I believe the direction was the state was going to now participate in the litigation, and we could either agree to sign on to them or continue on as our own claimant. And I don't want to get into too many details because we had a lot of legal advice given to us behind closed doors. And the best course forward was for us to receive funding, was to sign on with the state agreement at that time. We did not have input, direct input into the calculation on how the funding is being calculated and apportioned back.
It would just seem to me that at this point, I feel like local government is least equipped to properly direct the funding to most directly and effectively address the issue at hand. Like, I feel like we're going to get bogged down in several fiscal cycles of that fragmentation of, okay, what's the best way to do this? Where's the best way to spend it? How is it, going to best address the need out there? And to me, like, in my mind, I envision something more akin to like the County Disability Advisory Board, where that entity is made up of entities, where the funding is directed to, where those entities deal with that issue directly and are best equipped to be able to understand, where their funding, comes from, where it will go to, which entities are providing, the appropriate level of care and assistance to address. And I hate to say it, but I think that the city and the county, our best course of action would be to sit down and say, okay, as elected bodies, we are not the best equipped to handle addressing this issue with the funding we've received. We need to jointly, cooperatively develop a unilateral board, much like the Disability Advisory Board, and I'm just using that as an example because that's what pops in my head. The County Gaming Commission is another example where it says, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's our 10-year roadmap to this, so that we're not arguing over this for the next 3 years, pointing fingers at one another of where money should have been spent or should be spent. And we're letting a body of our professional peers sort of govern, much like those boards do, of how best to address the issue. Because I don't have those answers sitting at this table. I don't work in that industry to be able to to have that knowledge base. And there's not a person sitting at this table or another elected body table locally that isn't going to have some subjective political perspective interjected into that determination process. And that's just my 2 cents.
I agree. It's vital that we work together on this.
Avery, are there other instances where that has happened in the state?
Yeah, there are some subdivisions who pretty much have the health department entirely managing their funds. There are also some cities and towns who are frankly getting so little funding that they've decided it's like not worth managing it and are deferring the funding to the county. I'm not hearing that that's what you guys would want to do, but I do think in this situation, talking to Washington County about their plans to coordinate efforts, talking to the OPT, which is in Washington County, about their ideas or thoughts would be a good place for you all to start. And I'll also add, if you guys want to move the money or whatever it is you want to do, it's kind of up to you guys how that happens. And so there's some documentation we need, but if you wanted to let the OPT have a role, but want to ensure the funding is spent in the city, I think that you can stipulate that. Like, this is really a negotiation kind of up to you guys. And so, yeah, I think those are good partners to start talking to. But we have MOUs kind of all of the time with folks, about how these funds can be spent. And that's A-okay, because we know it's complicated. And, to the point of this discussion, we want these dollars to be spent in an impactful way. And so if that means other folks need to be at the table with that, I think that that's a sound decision based on what I'm hearing today.
So internally, staff had conversations, and I think we last, Scott, was at January, February. The county staff actually planned the meeting, invited a lot of partners. We all sat around the table. We all had some ideas. And I'm not certain exactly, the county had developed a 5-year plan. I'm just not sure if it was for their direct dollar spend or if it was for the abatements. I'm thinking it was just recently. Avery, have they sent anything? I didn't go back and look, and I should have. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Yeah, they submitted a local abatement plan. I believe it was last week. There were a couple edits we needed, so it's not quite approved yet. But once that's approved, we're happy to share it. I also am happy to put you all in connection with the person who's running it, so you could coordinate proactively as well. But it also, to be honest, like the level of detail we require in that is really just to kind of ensure allowable spending is occurring. And so I think a conversation would also be helpful too, because you guys might get some more detail from that than like what is just on paper.
And that was all recent. And they had the list of all the things that they were of where they proposed to spend their funding. And I'm pretty sure it was Maria, that their grants area is over that.
But here's my curiosity about that and maybe that perspective of why I think that the proposal that I'm, formulating in my head is most effective is because we're talking about the city being a third of the county population roughly that's going to receive directly about 10% of what the county is going to receive. Even though in every conversation that the average person wants to have, they're going to point and say, the problem exists in the city, right? And if I hear that the funding is then being directed at the county level, where they got 15 million and we've got 1.5 million, and I hear that maybe the county's, and let's say their plan comes out and it says, you know what, we're going to give a bunch of money out to Meritus to address the issue out there, and we're going to give a bunch of money to the Washington County Detention Center to address the issue there. But for the next 10 years, we're going to talk about how the problem exists in the city. Like, to me, and then folks are going to go look and say, what are you doing with your, 10% of what you got if the bulk of that funding over that foreseeable future is in a plan that's already, set to be approved that isn't going to be spent there at all. And I'm going to be sitting here going, okay, what am I actually supposed to do with this much smaller amount to address an issue that everybody sort of
Pushes.
conversationally agrees exists in downtown Hagerstown? So I would hope that we would delegate that at least in some way to the professional entities in this community to come up with a plan rather than a plan coming from this table and our municipal staff or the county's table and their county internal staff. I don't think that will result in effectuating and addressing the issue that we all sort of drive around and agree that we see exists, in that more urban area of the community. That's just a reality. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but that's sort of like that basic citizen perspective.
I agree with you. That's why I asked the question on distribution of money at the very beginning. Avery, I'd like to ask you another question, if you don't mind. Educate me on harm reduction. Is it up to each county to participate in it? First question.
Sure. So, yes, under the parameters of, opioid restitution funding, it does not dictate any required spending in any category. And so folks are welcome to pick and choose from Exhibit E what they want to spend funds on. There is a section specifically for harm reduction in Exhibit E, and so I would refer folks to that. But I also, anytime the topic comes up, I encourage folks to kind of look at it in an expansive manner, because sometimes harm reduction is also like feeding people and doing outreach with folks, and it's not always like the the term that I think gets associated and sometimes brings a lot of stigma and controversy to conversations. And so I would encourage folks to look at it in the manner that it's explained in Exhibit E, and kind of think it as this expansive thing and not maybe just what comes up in, news media articles and can cause some contentious conversations.
No, what my question is it an elective for each county to participate in the program? Or is
So,
it mandated by the state to participate in it?
To my knowledge, it's not. I'll be honest. I think it's not really our purview. Maryland Department of Health's Office of Harm Reduction is who oversees the harm reduction programs. And I'm not sure if you're referring to a program specifically. I imagine you're referring to like syringe service programs. To my knowledge, there's no mandate. But I'll be honest, I don't feel like the best expert on that. And I'm happy to connect you with the folks at the Office of Harm Reduction if you'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah, I would, because if they're not mandated and we do that, I think it's imperative that we do work with the county, because since we have the most services in the county and we take the brunt of this, then we really need to work together.
Absolutely. Happy to connect you with the folks over there.
Thank you.
I have a question. If we don't use the funds, will it expire? Like, you gotta use it or lose it situation?
Nope, they roll over. For targeted abatement grant funds, those just stay in our account until we get a local abatement plan. But yeah, there's no expiration date on it. I will say the funds have to remain in like a special fund, and so they can't be, intermixed with any general funds. And regardless of the time frame, they still have to be spent on allowable uses. But yeah, no use it or lose it parameter here.
And I would like to agree with Councilman Alshire with creating like an opioid restitution committee made up of the experts. Even in conversations that we've had at this table outside of City Hall, we're always referring to the health department and that expertise anyway, in Emily's office. So I agree, it makes sense to have those who know, the situations and having the data. These partners have the information that can put a real plan together.
One thing I will note, sorry, I forgot when I mentioned this earlier. So the one deadline we actually did institute is for municipalities, which City of Hagerstown is a municipality, is to submit a local abatement plan by the end of this fiscal year. So that's July 1. Otherwise, we will revert the tag funds to the county, and that is just because they are sitting in our account and have been for years, and we'd rather see them out in use in the community. But as far as like a hard deadline, we've set that. I think we are here to be flexible and ensure that the funds are being used the way that they need to be. And so if we need to have further conversations about that, that's fine. But totally forgot about it and wanted to flag it all for you that there is like around a 7-month time frame, at least for the local abatement plan, to get something together in order to still have access to those tag funds.
Have any applications been locally and within Washington County been submitted yet?
For the local abatement plan, you guys are the only municipality in Washington County that's party to the settlement. And so, no.
Okay.
I also want to just ask a question. As far as the funding, why, and I'm just trying to understand also what Councilmember Asher said, why isn't it allocated more for where the need is most? Like, versus giving it, like, I understand county as a whole and city in the whole, but why isn't it more allocated to where there's more of a need? That makes any sense?
Yeah, it does. I hear you. I will be honest, this was a decision at like the attorney level when they were negotiating these settlements. There are formulas within the settlement that determined where funding went. And I will be honest, I cannot recall if overdose rate was calculated in it, but I think it was. And the rest of it's population based. So like, for example, our office, when we do funding, we do a 55-45 split of overdose rates to ensure funding is going to where it's needed. I can look that up and follow up with you guys on it. But again, that was kind of like an OAG thing. We weren't involved with any of the settlement negotiations at that point. And I'll be honest, changing that would require like pulling back the whole settlement. And so I'll be honest, that's not going to happen. But yeah, there was decisions in 2020 between lawyers that kind of made up those formulas.
So for example, I do want to just give one quick example because we often say Western Maryland, right? City of Cumberland, City of Frostburg combined their money with Allegheny County. So all of their money is the three of them together on the report that just came out by the state, right?
Great way to do it.
I like the idea of the committee.
So next steps, what's next steps? Like,
Create
look into-
a committee.
Yeah,
Get
but
it.
I like the committee.
Okay.
So they would have to also offer up, like, they would make a separate committee, or we would
No, we
combine?
would have one
City,
combined
county.
committee.
If the county would agree.
If I was about to say,
That's correct.
that'll be interesting.
I agree that it's not us, we should not be directing this one.
I agree.
And I know they had opioid restitution on their agenda a couple weeks ago. So they're already obviously discussing it, so we should
Right.
probably have that conversation sooner than later before they, finalize their plan.
And they might have already approved it. I'm not 100%, I'd have to go back because I didn't follow it the whole way through and I apologize for that.
We still could, if they did, we could still have our own committee made up of experts.
All right. Any other questions for Avery? Okay. Avery, thank you.
Tell your boss hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was helpful.
Okay, next up, we'll have Mr. Jim Bender come up, our city engineer, to withdraw from the MDEM grant agreement.
So good afternoon. Back in 2024, during the Biden administration, the city applied for a grant through the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. It was intended to do a computer model of the city's storm drainage system to identify bottlenecks in places where we were going to have to spend money to improve our system. And we were successful. We received a $75,000 grant through that program, and we were going to match it with $25,000 of local funds. That was toward the end of 2024. It took us a month or two to start the process of actually getting into that project. And the first thing that we were going to do is hire a consultant to actually do the computer model for us. We were in that process when we received notification from Department of Emergency Management that we should pause our efforts because they were told the money was actually coming through from FEMA through them. And they were told that there was some question about whether those funds were still available or would be available. And so we've been sitting here for 6 or 7 months, really in limbo, not having any direction from them, not having any direction directly from FEMA about whether or not those funds are still available. Based on a couple of things, the delegation that I was a part of that went to Washington DC and met with Senator Van Hollen, we brought this topic up, and the impression I got from his answer was it's going to be a tough thing to try to get this money released because the whole purpose of this funding was to deal with climate change and resiliency, and that is not really a focus of the current administration. So I think it's very unlikely during this administration's term that funding is going to be released. And if we can continue to wait, but the state, I get the sense, really doesn't want us to because they have to report back to FEMA about expenditures. We have to report to the state about progress that we aren't making because we don't have any funding. So at this point, I think my recommendation would be to go ahead and withdraw from this grant agreement. Hopefully sometime in the future, a similar program will come out with a new application and we can apply at that point. But just sitting here without being able to move on this project just doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now.
Well, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and the good thing was we were early enough in the process, we had not expended any city funds, so it's not like we're out of a reimbursement, so. that's the point.
Donna, will we have to vote on this to remove?
We probably voted on to accept it, right?
Yeah, So I'll bring it back at the regular session with a
Okay.
motion, and then we'll send a letter to Maryland. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Next up, private property hosting paid parties.
Just an opportunity to get your thoughts on what you're thinking about as far as what you'd like to see done with these, whether, a permitting process or something to try to regulate these parties that have caused some issues in the past, especially over the summer when the kids get out. Just looking for some input from you all as to what you're thinking you'd like us to look into.
No question, like if they, I mean, okay, let me make sure, how do we know?
That's a great question. These are usually not publicized in
Right, that's what
normal
I'm saying.
channels. I think then it becomes just a reaction. I hate to say that, but pretty much that's what it becomes, is a reaction. Almost like the raves. I don't know if you remember when they would have raves or rages or whatever they called them. Yeah.
In Montgomery County, that's been a big problem. They've talked about it, illegal get-togethers and things like that a lot.
Right. That was just some, I mean, Councilmember Burnett had brought it up. And that is one of the big problems with this, is that trying to identify when these happen proactively, it's almost impossible to do that unless, we have someone that will monitor social media. But a lot of this is word of mouth.
Or somebody
I
calling.
mean,
Yeah.
no, for me, my concern were just the parties in general, when it involves the kids and
Right.
drinking and smoking and staying outside in the wee hours of the night. But our curfew will address that issue. But as far as like having more restrictions on private homes having parties, I don't want to put any restrictions on that. But I do if there's a bunch of kids.
Right.
I mean,
Do we just write something like that into that curfew ordinance?
Into the
or-
curfew, certainly.
You know what I
we can
mean? So
look into
then
doing
it's,
that.
it's
one
in
way to
there,
address
like
it.
just saying no
Should it be more
Party.
representation? Is that what you mean? Like, it would be, if someone were to get a call and they were to come into the home and then they notice, wow, there's like 10 or 12 kids here under the age, is that a
I mean,
violation?
I feel like we can use the tools we already have to enforce if there's kids doing bad things, rather than having like a separate ordinance for
Right.
property owners cannot have parties that you have to pay, like.
Well, I think the other concern was using commercial space as well. I think one of these parties occurred in a vacant commercial building, trying to regulate or hold accountable those commercial business owners or property owners that allowed that to happen. Or a lot of times, I won't say a lot of times, but I'm sure there could be instances where if it's vacant, it gets broken into and the party's held there. So we can certainly, I think the curfew is a good way to do that. Public awareness, if they see something like this where it does look a little dicey, that something's going on, they see a lot of folks together to alert the police department to check it out. But then also, I would certainly be more concerned of the use of commercial space for these underage parties, and when underage drinking or other, tomfooleries going on, that there be a way to address that through law enforcement, through the legal system, through code enforcement as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how we separate sort of like, I'm trying to figure out how we separate or apply civil penalty versus, police penalty, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how you create that, and I'm struggling in my
You want to
mind.
add something, Ashley? You want to, come up.
No, I think the biggest thing is in the state fire marshal's office. So a lot of these things, if
Right.
you're not, there's nothing you can do criminally because you can't really pin it down to if it's actually happening or not. And then if you show up and people kind of scatter and it's not a police issue anymore, then it becomes a fire marshal issue because you can always call the fire marshal if there's more than so many people in a residence.
For an assembly violation.
Correct. So, I mean, I would think with the curfew thing and then contacting the state fire marshal office might be the best route, but.
And we could also look into how other municipalities may be handling it as well.
What about our nuisance ordinance? I
That
know
would,
that's
yeah,
come
but that would be
down
a process. That would be a process. This would be something where I think you'd want to take action on that incident, not have to go through.
Say that
Good way
again?
to shut me up.
Say that again, Scott? What
Um,
did you say it?
Now I can't remember what I was saying.
The nuisance.
Where it would be something you would want to act on, instead of going through the nuisance process where it's so many violations, you'd want to nip it in the bud right away.
And that's all changed anyway. We no longer have the crime-free multi-housing because there were some changes at the state level.
Right.
So I know Lieutenant Lewis and Lieutenant Lehman can brief you all on those changes, but
Right.
that program even looks a little different now, and there's a lot less that we in law enforcement can do.
We met today with Andy Lewis and Ashley, and he wanted to make it clear, and that's something we want to bring to you guys. And actually, he's already emailed Morton and passed it on to Rods. But the biggest thing is when there's a vacant property and there's a lot of people in it, he said if there is no owner to contact or you can't get a hold of someone, and it's not a city-owned property, they cannot enforce that. So there's no one to file the claim, so they legally cannot remove someone. They can ask them to leave.
Right.
So we're looking into possibly trying to see if there's anything that can be done on that side to have something that can, if it's been vacant for so long, we're having a problem, can't get a hold of an owner, like we've talked about.
we've
Is
talked
there
about,
something that
right.
we can do to not take ownership, but guardianship of the property so that you can prosecute
Because
and
there's
make
no
it?
victim. If there's no victim, then there's no crime.
So like, for example, as it's stating now, if there's an abandoned building or however you're describing it, and there's kids in there, if there's no owner of it,
Can't
you
get a
can
hold
go
of them.
there.
You can't
and
get a hold of the
But
owner.
you can't make them leave. Is that kind of
Well,
like?
they can still be told to leave.
They can be asked to leave.
They can
I think
be
he said.
asked to leave, but what I'm saying is if you can't contact the owner to say you need them removed, then you really can't? Is that kind of like what I'm hearing?
If they're juveniles, that's a little different. Especially if it's in the middle of the night and we have curfew and
curfew.
things like that.
They need
They
to
can
back
be
on
asked to leave, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Now you get back to the whole squatter
Yeah.
dilemma.
Yeah, so I mean, we are looking a little bit more into that just to see legally like what we can do, because I think that's where our biggest problems are, the vacant properties and
Right.
people coming in and, their hands are kind of tied. We want to see that property taken care of. We also don't want to see it vacant, so like how long do we leave it on our vacant structures? Like, so we're reevaluating those kind of
And
things.
again, you all have to understand, there are so many changes happening on a daily basis, it seems, with state legislation and things that we find out at meetings that like, we can't do anymore. Just this this crime-free multi-housing change just happened within the last few months. So again, like we're learning too, as changes are being made
Yeah,
above
October
us.
1st that went into effect.
Yeah, so we're just navigating changes as well, and it'll probably all change again in a few years, it's just.
And we're going to bring back some other ideas on dealing with vacant properties as we get more towards budget season. So that may be another way to attack it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead, we'll look at other municipalities and see if any of the others have any type of ordinances that address this particular subject. But then we'll try to work through vacant structures and through the curfew ordinance and see if that will help us with this.
I say it's also a good idea if we are enforcing this, to also put it, rather be on our social media or on our
Sure.
website.
Yep.
So then parents can engage and know when something like that could be possibly happening in our area and
Yep.
can be aware, just awareness,
Yep.
really.
Scott,
can
when are we bringing the curfew to vote? It's supposed to be at the end of the month. This month?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I know we discussed that too with sharing awareness that we made some revisions to
Oh,
the
yeah,
ordinance
even with
and
the
Yep,
school.
and then
time is 11 o'clock.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, we move on. Next is the review of amended rules of procedure. Scott, you want?
We'll let Donna. take
Don?
that one.
Okay. Can we get on that?
Picking up on. Here.
So based on your discussion last week, or yes, it was last week, with the rules of procedure, I put together the draft that you have in your packet and noted on page 2, the description that the version of Robert's Rules of Order applies to everyone involved in the meeting, whether they're here or whether they're watching. And if you look through, especially to the addressing the citizens' rights and addressing the mayor and council, I think I made the changes that you'd asked for. We made it just one citizen comment time, which would be near the beginning of the meeting after the proclamations and public hearing, rather than having the two, the one before and the one after. The pre-registration would be 2 hours prior to the scheduled start of the meeting. And we would do that. They could either call, they could come in, well, they could come in and register. No, we're not going to have sign up in the hallway. They need to pre-register and has to be 2 hours ahead of time. There will be information on the city's website of how to do that. We'll have the form that they can fill out. They would need to put their actual name, their actual address, and the topic that they wish to discuss. People will still be allowed to come to the meeting. It'll be a public meeting. And
I'm sorry, Donna, did you say that someone could physically come in and sign up?
no, I said that, but that is not what we
Okay,
wrote.
okay. Thank you.
But people can still attend the meeting. That would be different for public hearings because that is a different process. That's the process of taking testimony. So there would be a sign-up sheet for public hearings. And can still do the comments by email, same time restriction, 2 hours prior to the start of the regular session.
Donna, sorry, quick question. What's that time frame for pre-registration for them to be allowed to speak? We know?
2 hours prior to.
2 hours prior.
Mhm. And I kind of took that upon myself to put it to 2 hours. We used to have it at 5 PM, but because of a scheduling change that has occurred, and it may occur again, if I put 2 hours ahead of time, then that covers any time change that there would be for the regular session. And if I've missed something, please let me know. If it looks good, we actually have a special session scheduled for next week that for a vote on the rules of procedure to approve those, and then they would be in place for your meeting on November 26th.
I have just one recommendation in 7.1, where citizens may share other matters with the city clerk separately. Can we add how that's done? Is it to city clerk's email or is that still to council comments? So I would like an email right behind that.
Okay.
For clarity.
And we could have it that it goes to the email address for citizen comments, but then it should be the mayor and council and the city administrator, I think, that determine whether or not it's an agenda item.
Can I just ask, what are we trying to accomplish there? Sorry, I wasn't here for your initial discussion about this. So is the goal that if someone wants, I don't know, wants you to have an agenda item about how my house looks like trash, and it's not on your agenda item, it's not on your agenda, so it's not necessarily germane, but they want you to add it to a future agenda. Is that what we're trying to do? Because that's not really a comment you would be looking for? Okay.
Well, no, actually, that is put that in there on a recommendation from Councilmember Alshire, that that's how they handle that. And that was my interpretation of it. I may have it completely
So is
wrong
that
with
what we're inviting here, them to maybe raise a subject matter they want the city to add as an agenda item at a future meeting?
Yeah, I think that the effort is twofold. The first is to ensure that comments that individuals would like to come before the mayor and council and make are germane to city business. I think that while the 2 hours is probably, I think, a little later than I had hoped, to provide that. But if individuals would like to present matters unrelated to city business, they may feel it's related to city business. They're welcome to convey those to the city clerk, because those items get vetted by the mayor, who sets the agenda. So I'll give you an example. Last meeting, and I don't mean any disrespect in terms of trying to point anybody out, but there was a comment brought forth during public comments period of the meeting about, we should have a commercial created. Somebody should create a commercial to accentuate truck drivers, delivery of goods, because they're the real, deliverers of Christmas. And so that's a public comment that's made, and it's fine. Individuals, are welcome to whatever comments that they would like in general in life. That had nothing to do with city business. That's not something germane to something we can effectuate. And so, I don't know what that has to do with, the matters at hand of city business that we're there to conduct on the evening during that course of our regular session. So the framework of this was to try and attempt to address that.
So then everything would still come through council comments, and it would be up to the city clerk to determine whether it is something that's germane to that meeting. And then I would give that to the mayor and city administrator for scheduling or having someone reach out to that person or something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think a general example that I used was, in my employment with Myersville, we have two sections of comments on our public meeting, right? We have the first section which says, anybody wants to talk about anything that's on the agenda tonight? We got a public comment section for that at the beginning of the meeting. At the end of the meeting, we have something called housekeeping, where somebody can go up and they can speak for a minute on some matter that they may, I got a sidewalk in neighborhood X, I'd like to bring up, could you please, consider putting on a future agenda to discuss what you're going to do about sidewalks. That would be a rational, practical thing, to state to the body. So I'm trying to hone the direction of citizen comments toward those comments that have a rational nexus to the matters that we're able to consider.
I think we can actually do something about.
Yeah. I can't do anything about whatever's going on at the federal level, so I don't know, the benefit of having that presentation and deliberation made.
And the intention is that citizens may address this body at a regular session. Yes.
Yeah, the monthly session.
So I would recommend that we add that clarification to the like the title, number 7, so that it's clear that this is how you're addressing mayor and council during a regular session. And Donna, we can work on whether that should be the subject for the whole thing or whether just in certain parts, but I think we want to clarify that citizen comments are for regular sessions. I also want to make sure everyone's aware of 7.5 and whether that's something that we want to keep, remove, refine.
I mean, if we keep it to city business, I'm not sure by reading petitions, well, unless it's related to the city. I'm trying to figure out if that's still applicable if we're only focusing on city business.
Well, I think I take that section to mean exactly what the gentleman did at our last regular meeting that stood up and say, hey, I represent 1540, here are our grievances. To me, that was, as close to a protest that you can get against, the matter at hand, the city matter at hand of what, the current state of negotiations are with that particular entity on wages, but they selected an individual to represent that group to do that.
So do you want those matters treated differently? Because right now, whatever falls into the category of 7.6 is different than 7.1.
7.6 or 7.5?
Yeah, sorry, 7.5. So protests, petitions, or communications that are in 7.5 are treated differently than 7.1 currently. Is that what we want? If so, it's fine. If it's not what we want, then we need to do some revision.
It's different to the degree you're saying that it provides the opportunity for a majority of council to make the decision for that individual to be heard. And it's different to the degree that it allows or directs that a spokesperson be identified for the particular subject matter.
Yeah, and I think it also is not clear, when does this happen?
Correct.
What's the length? What's the format, et cetera?
Should fall under the same.
I think it should be under the same framework.
Okay,
That they have to sign up prior to.
okay.
I just think that this was trying to say, hey, if we got a bunch of people here on a single, much like you did for the police substation the other evening. you
That's
said-
in 7.2.
Yeah.
So 7.2 addresses the issue of when you have 15 people here, all on the same matter. And that is another question that I have, because right now your rules say that the organization may choose representatives,
Right.
which means that's not your choice to make. That's theirs. And again, that's fine. But is that what you want?
When I borrowed this to implement the rules from ours, we changed that specific term because it is fairly nebulous in its approach to, one, do they have to even agree to that?
No.
And I think that speaks to the issue of, you were fortunate that the individuals did agree to that the other evening, but also to that concern I expressed, which isn't addressed in here, which is, I think public comment period should be limited to a finite period in the meeting. If you have 30 people that want to make comment, but you only have 15 minutes, I'm sorry, but, we're allowed to accommodate, or we're able to accommodate, X number of those individuals at that particular meeting. Those comments that other individuals may have, either under direct consideration, we all have email, we all have phones, we all have address, or you get, put on the next meeting to talk.
So can we identify a number?
Two.
Because it says large groups. So could we identify a number, like?
I don't think that's what you're talking about. right now. You're talking about there's a finite thing no matter what. But before we go down that trail,
You should identify a single individual.
right. So you want to make it mandatory.
To me, I think that that is the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, I don't.
If you're
care.
here on a
I'm not
collective
gonna
issue,
somebody.
there should
There's a
be,
lot of people commenting, we want to limit time, we don't want them all commenting on the same issue. So-
Okay. Okay,
I would say any more than two.
Right, because right now it
Yeah.
just says when a large group of citizens, so it has to be.
what about if there are 20 people here and 10 are in opposition to something and 10 are in favor? Are they on a different topic or not?
good question.
That's typically during like public hearings, right? Like we have a.
But,
or-
but what about if you've got the out-of-door lodging ordinance?
Can you do the same thing?
Two on either side.
Two on both sides?
Listen. I think if you've signed up to speak to a matter germane to city business on that evening, you fit within the allotted time and the parameters you've signed up, you get your 3 minutes.
So even if there are 15 other people talking
On
on
the same issue.
the
Well,
same issue?
I think that you address the issue of length and repetition by setting those time parameters for overall comments that you will receive on that specific evening. I mean, you could use 202 as an example.
Right. So I get that that's where you're coming from. I don't know that that's where
I
others
mean,
are
me
coming from.
personally, I look at it like if there's several people here to speak on a topic, they all want to be heard. That's just my opinion, because I know, like, for example, when you set the tone last week and it's like if there's 10 people, one person speaks, they get upset because they want to speak, they want to be heard. You don't ever know, like, just because I'm speaking about the same topic, you might speak about it differently. So I don't know if that's kind of like what you're saying. Maybe if it's a big group, we don't give them 3 minutes. Maybe it's just one. You get up there and you kind of narrow it down and kind of say something really quick. That's just how, I mean, I'm not sure if that's how, Councilmember, how you're really saying it, but that's where I'm coming from with it. Like, I wouldn't want to go somewhere and with hopes that I'm going to get to speak. And because it's 5 of us, then I don't get to speak.
Yeah.
But I think that, I agree, I think that setting the tone by establishing a time frame directs individuals of like-minded concern to negotiate that, in some cohesive fashion beforehand.
But how are they going to know that? Because if I come to speak on 202, I don't necessarily know who else is coming to speak on 202. And we're not publicizing that information in advance.
No, I think that our rules of procedure should include a time frame for public comment.
Crystal clear. Yeah, like,
So-
but is that what we're doing? Is that what the body is doing?
That was one of the items
A
on,
total time for, like, you.
that was one of the items of
Right,
recommendation
there's gonna
on
be
the list
30
we
minutes for
considered
public
last week.
comment. How that.
But is that what all of you want to do?
That's what I
Or
heard at the
is that what the
meeting,
majority of
that there
you
was an
wanna do?
agreement.
And if so, what is that time?
Right, nobody can yell at me about how long it goes and nobody can leave early.
No, like, to me, like 30 minutes
30
is the
minutes.
maximum
So
I
everybody.
would provide
Yeah.
for,
So the 30 minutes is what
for,
is
for,
allowed.
for general public comment on
All
issues
time.
germane to city business.
30 minutes if you haven't
That's
spoken.
roughly
And if
like
there's still
10
6, 7 people that want to talk after 30
Right.
minutes,
No, that
Then
I'm
they can
okay
come
with,
talk later.
especially if maybe we make, once we get ready, if you say, hey, this is what is allowed, after that,
Well, it might end up being a fight for people to get here early enough to be able to line up.
Yeah, but I-
People to speak at
so-
one topic.
They'd have to sign up.
So I think the reality of that
They
is,
would have to sign up
that
before
that's
council.
not likely to occur. I think that identifying that you want to hear from citizens about city business is going to decrease the other things that individuals have an interest in coming and speaking about, or at least the tangents that occur. But the other thing I think, and I'd say, I think that the 2 hours before the meeting, I think runs you into a bit of trouble in terms of collating, the speakers, that you've identified, are provided the opportunity to speak at the meeting that evening.
So you feel like they should know earlier than?
Yeah, I do. I
So
just
it'll be
do
like
because
early in the
I think that pushing it so close to the meeting, I think runs you into some trouble. And that's why I think if you look at HCC, I think if you look at the Board of Ed, I don't know what the county's doing now, but they require individuals to sign up, much sooner before the meeting. So that they have a clear awareness and the chair has the ability to review those submissions before the meeting and say, these are common germane to city business and will be on the meeting for that purpose.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting there waiting on the meeting and it starts and I get the paper. And that's when I see what everybody's listed.
Right, and I think that in order for this to work with some consistency and to practically apply, at least for me, and I'm just one member of council, to want to hear from citizens on city matters, I just think that you have to have a process in place that provides for the consistency to ensure that occurs well before the night of the meeting.
Okay, so whatever the deadline is, people sign up. And then the mayor is gonna go through and look and say, well, that actually, federal elections have nothing to do with the city, so we're not doing that one. But here are these other, and we have 15. We've got 30 minutes. So does that mean that the first 10 who registered go?
Yeah.
Does that mean that everyone gets 2 minutes?
No, it means that you get your 3 minutes, and if we have more people signed up than time allotted, the individuals that are after that period can speak at the next regular meeting.
Or can submit a written testimony or something.
Yeah, I mean,
And
yeah,
we're
they can,
going
they
in,
can,
we're going in order in which they register. So it's first come, first serve.
I think that that's the most consistent way to establish that type of process.
I sure hope they're all not on the same subject then. I'd like to hear different points of view throughout the meeting.
Well, I think we should have some verbiage too at the chair's discretion. If there is a time where there's 9 folks registered to speak at the same issue, maybe at the chair's discretion, you allow all 9 to speak because we have availability in the time slot. You know what I mean?
So you're saying that we do, like when the mayor would say, is there anybody else here this evening who would like to speak?
No,
Okay.
no, not that, not
Okay.
that. But when the pre-registered list comes to the mayor and he looks and sees that only 10 people signed up or 5 people signed up and they all about the same issue, city business, it will be up to the mayor's discretion to hear from all 5 of that same issue.
And if you have 15, it would be the mayor's discretion to say, I'm going to limit to 3 people? Is that-
Right. So we have that flexibility to Councilwoman Bell's point of still allowing more than one opinion on the same topic.
That's what I was kind of throwing out, was like, can we set a number of people on the same topic and cut it at that? If it gets over that, then if you're, and I think Councilman Irishire is right, if it's submitted a lot earlier, maybe those people can be informed.
So for me, there's only a difference if they're with the same group.
So for example, when 1540 showed up, they showed up with 10 individuals and
One person spoke.
one person spoke.
Right.
Versus if you have 20 different people from different groups and they're all in the same topic, I think that's okay. They're not all from the same group, but if it's all, we're all from one group, we're all from one group, we might have to go ahead and say, okay, we've got like 7 groups. And if we allow 10 out of 7 groups to speak, we're gonna run out of time. So I think as long as they're in the same groups, it's at the mayor's discretion to say, okay, I can only have 2 of you or 3 of you, versus saying everyone is on the same topic, we can only choose 5. That's not right.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm a little nervous about us just going by topic, because there could be multiple views on that topic. Right. What if in the pre-registration, we ask people if they're coming with or on behalf of an organization, that they identify that. So then we would know, like, everyone from Locomotive 202, whatever the organization is. And then if there's 20 of them coming and they've all signed up, then that can trigger our rule that because they're all part of the same organization and they're speaking as part of that organization, then
It's at his discretion.
they can choose a representative or they can choose 2 representatives, whatever you decide.
That's more so what I'm saying. If they're coming all from like the same groups,
Yeah,
it's not really about the topics. It's more so you might have 10 groups in here and they might all have 10 people representing the same group. And we don't have the time to listen to 10 individuals from each group speak. I guess that's the issue.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I totally understand what you're saying and totally agree with what you're saying. So let's think of 202. We know they're coming for one common cause. So we don't need all 30 of them to come up, right? We all can all agree on that. But just say, like, for example, last week when Bethel Gardens came, they're going to have a different perspective. Even though they're all coming from Bethel Gardens, they're all coming from a different perspective. One might want to talk about the substation, another might talk about different uses or just whatever. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you put it in a category, then that kind of, you know what I mean?
Right. So my recommendation would be that you err on the side of allowing redundancy. So yeah, you probably know what everyone regarding Locomotive 202 is going to say, but they may have different reasons for it, right? So maybe instead of being focused on the topic, we focus instead on, let's say that just like the union brought however many people with them, 15. And so we're going to ask the union to please within itself determine who's going to speak on their behalf, rather than hearing from all 15 members about what the union grievances are. So if they're coming on behalf of an organization, then maybe that's when we can say, okay, not every one of you gets to speak for 3 minutes. The
Right,
organization gets to make its pitch.
Like when Alva comes and Mr. Staub comes, like, they're generally speaking about the same subject matter, but they're clearly not representing, they're not here on behalf of an organization.
Right.
I think that that's the distinction.
Right.
And I think that that's I think that's a reasonable distinction. I don't have any difficulty in listening to 10 citizens that have concerns about needles and whatever those 10 different perspectives may be.
Yeah.
But I agree, if you're here on a specific subject representing a specific organization, it's a different thing.
I have one more question. Sorry, I know you regret inviting me here.
Don't worry about me.
7.6. Can we just combine that in with the emails?
Yeah.
So back-
I agree.
So back to the emails, how frequently can they send in their comments or emails? Is that open to any day? Is that just on?
Yep.
Okay.
Sometimes we get them right after the regular meeting, sometimes we get them on the day of the meeting. It's just, there's not a time frame that it's most at this time.
And then I had two other comments that are not related specifically to citizen comments. One is provision 2.7 on page 3, says that the city attorney shall attend all meetings of the mayor and council.
Yeah. That's your point.
I think what you want is to attend regular sessions. I mean, that's the practice. So.
Okay.
Where is it?
We're gonna create-
All right.
2 points. Let me find it.
2 points.
And then the other is that your rules still refer to a chairman.
Ah, which would be the mayor or
Person.
person?
So can we just go with chair?
Yeah, that works.
That's what we did, municipal chair.
Okay.
Well, you went over that for 5, 6 times, didn't you?
Right.
Gee.
So wait, just to make sure. Just to make sure. Yeah, so are we all gonna agree that we're gonna leave it up to the mayor's discretion when we have a big party of a group of individuals? Because we don't know, it could be 5, it could be 7, and it just depends on how the day is going. It could be quiet, it could be, are we gonna leave it up to your discretion? Okay.
Like it's up to it.
Yeah, because I feel like in the instance where we know, people are going to make us know. You know what I mean? Where the issue's bigger than the issue. Like, you're gonna get emails, and those are few and far between.
Okay. So.
Here's a good
got
example.
everything?
Like, here's a good example.
Yeah.
The young lady who sent us an email about wanting to do the microgreen thing at her house, that made it to our table, it made it to staff's table, you know what I mean? It's making its way through that process because, if we're going to be made aware, we're made aware, and it goes.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is our study period for 149 North Potomac Street. This is Jill Thompson and Doug Reed.
Hi, guys.
Good news do you have for us?
I'll introduce this and then open for discussion. The city's executed a purchase contract for 149 North Potomac Street. There is an inspection agreement for the property that provides the city a 60-day study period that runs from September 11th to November 10th. The contract allows the city at the deadline of that study period, up until the deadline of the study period, to elect to either move forward with the purchase or to terminate the contract. So we're providing this opportunity to discuss the status and the next steps, as this is the work session prior to the end of that study period. So we want to open it up for discussion. And any questions you have for Doug and I.
I mean, I think probably the basic question, at least that I have and probably everybody else might have, is like how much, right? I mean, like what kind of like costs metrics are we talking about based on those evaluations?
Yes, we performed an environmental and structural analysis. So from an as-is situation, so not a future development perspective, we're talking millions of dollars just to bring it up to a stable condition.
Is that structural, or you're talking about remediation and structural?
Correct, both.
I mean, millions is a broad term. You know what I mean?
How many millions?
Right, like 5 million, 10 million.
How many millions?
Again, it's an as-is situation, so as the building currently sits and that does not contemplate future development, we're probably talking $2+ million
In addition to the purchase
in
price.
addition to.
And so it could be viewed that the carrying costs, the stabilization and the repositioning costs may be a burdensome number in comparison to the city's current budget and the expectations when we ventured on this.
So I'm just going to say the same thing I said on the radio station yesterday when I was asked about this. And to me, these are the two things in my mind that I formulate on this particular topic is one, the city absolutely needs to try in all instances where there are, efforts available and opportunities available to explore these things. And I think that it sounds like we're doing that. We did that. We've probably looked at that building, I'm just guessing at this point, more than anybody's looked at that building in 20 years. We probably know more about the building now than anybody has cared to want to know about it in 20 years. And we've explored that opportunity. And then when I hear you bring forward costs like $5 million, the second thing I have to do is read the political climate in the room. And we've had 60 days to vet this in what I would call the court of political and public opinion. And what I've heard is unless you're going to tell me otherwise, I feel like you would have second to the part where you had some developer ready on board to go, but I didn't hear that just now. We have a federal government that can't, keep its doors open. We have a state government who our representative said, don't bring this to my table. I want nothing to do with it. And we have a county government that doesn't really appear to want to be partners on anything going on in the city. And so I hear a number like 5 million and I look at read the political climate of the room, and I'm thinking, man, if this was 2012, right, when everybody wanted to get back at it, or 2019 when things were booming and, everybody wanted to build a warehouse in our community and redevelop half of downtown. But that doesn't seem to be the climate at the moment, 2025. I just don't know that I want to carry, I don't mind the $2.5 million. I said that out of the gate. I didn't mind losing the $2.5 million if we could gain, some type of $15 to $30 million partner investment in that. But I also recognized that outset that would have to come with partnerships of much higher and much more financially stable governmental bodies. I don't see those partners, having the capacity to come to the table, even if they did want to. At the moment, that gives me some concern when you're saying it's double the 2.5, and that's just to carry it indefinitely. That makes this sort of 18-month time frame to make something happen, in my mind, become even more concerning, because I don't know that I can get those partners in their current economic and political climate to focus on something like this, and carry that, and also be able to address the concerns that we have right here with, employee wages and things like that are going to hit our budget, 6 months from now. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I don't want to be invested in a money pit, when we don't have the money for it. And we just recently raised taxes this year, and it's a great concept and idea, and I hope it gets revitalized, but we just can't do that.
Anybody else? Okay.
We tried.
And the last thing I'll say is, Doug, I appreciate being able to and I said this on the radio yesterday, I appreciated being able to take a tour of the building. For two reasons. One is, and I said this, I'll try and say it again. The vision that you have for this place, and the renaissance of this type of place, that you have at 50 is way different than how you remember it when you were there when you were 15. It is exactly that labyrinth of a place that you remember and you want it to be again, but then you go in and you go, man, I don't know that it can be. And so that I think was a bit eye-opening. The other thing was we built a lot more stably structurally sound buildings in the 1920s than we did in the 60s and the 80s. And you go through that building and you can see that. So that's just an observation.
And thank you, Doug and Jill, for putting all this effort into getting us to this place. Like Councilman said, I'm sure you probably dream about this building, and you have all the knowledge in case there are potential buyers that can reach out to the city for information and feedback. You guys are well equipped to do that. But thank you for your efforts.
And then procedurally, looking at Ann, there is a special session for action, so that would be the next step.
Correct. The contract allows you to terminate the contract.
It's on special session.
So special session tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the contract allows you to terminate it during the study period for cause or for no cause. So you can do it because of something you found during the inspections or simply because you don't want to do it. I think you guys have elaborated on why it's not a great idea for the city at this point in time. So if you wish to terminate the contract, then you'll need to take formal action to do that. And that would then authorize the mayor to formally notify the seller that the contract is terminated. And then the deposit gets returned to the city. And then it's like the contract didn't exist. Basically, it's done and over.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, okay. All right. We're going to take, how long you want?
10 minutes.
Take a 10-minute recess here real quick, or I ask for special session. 6:05.
Okay.
Welcome back to the November 4th, 2025 working special session. I would like to ask for a motion to go into special session.
So moved.
Have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now in special session. We have two motions that I'm going to read. First one up is approval of an ordinance amending the city code, chapter 60. This one's the first one? Okay.
Isn't it?
No.
Okay.
Speed camera funds is first.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
That's all right. Approval of an ordinance amending the city code, chapter 60-17, speed monitoring systems in school zones.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to approve an ordinance to amend the city code, chapter 60-17, speed monitoring systems in school zones by making the city schedule of fines consistent with state law and adding a savings clause.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I am.
Motion passes. You got the, no? Next, approval of a resolution to terminate the contract of sale with 149 North Potomac LLC for the purchase of 149 North Potomac Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the mayor and city council approve the attached resolution to terminate the contract of sale with 149 North Potomac LLC for the purchase of 149 North Potomac Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that's it on special session. We're now adjourned out of special session. City Administrator.
Okay, just a couple of things, Mayor. Last year was the final year of funding for the George Edwards Fund, which was used to provide grants to economic development projects in Washington, Garrett, and Allegheny counties. George funds received $40 million over those 4 years, and delegation members from all three Western Maryland counties asked last session for the $10 million annual funding to continue into the future. Allegheny and Garrett County are making that their top agenda item. The Community Coalition would like to add that as a priority above what was already approved by the coalition, and they're looking for our support by simply stating we support added continued funding, $10 million a year of the George Edwards Fund to the Washington County Coalition agenda. If I can get your up or down on that, I can communicate that and they can present that to the delegation tomorrow.
Yes.
Good with it.
Good? Okay, thank you. And then also we reached out, staff reached out to Bethel Gardens, and they are open for a town hall meeting on the 17th of November at 6 o'clock. If you all are okay with that, we can get that scheduled with Kathy Santiago over at Bethel Gardens,
I'm okay with that. Yep.
and we'll have it there. Okay? All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Councilwoman Anderson.
Nothing for me tonight.
Councilman Flaherty.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, I'm not a big fan of speed cameras in general, because I think they're money making. And my mother has incorrectly had many tickets sent to her from other cars. And I feel like it really robs residents of due process. So I'm not a big favor of them, and I know people need to make government, you know, money on that. And I have consistently seen that it just, you know, just making more money off of people. And also, you know, we don't deal with the federal issue. We are still in the government shutdown. And I'm very disappointed in Senators also Brooks and Van Hollen, because they've continuously voted against the CR to keep the government open. So if you're worried about your SNAP benefits, if you're worried about, you know, getting paid and you're a federal employee, please contact their office and put pressure on them to reopen the government. And I know that next Tuesday is Veterans Day, and I hope that folks in our community can get, you know, involved in veterans organizations and reach back out. I served in the Army National Guard for 7 years, and I think that, you know, they need to do a lot more in this area for veterans. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Bell.
Yes. I have two things that I would like to bring to a work session. I would like to see if we can hear any updates about the vacant buildings that were around town that went to court. I'm not sure if they went to settlement or how that's going. Would like to hear about that. Also, one major thing I would like, especially with this administration being so new, if we could have the ethics committee come and sit down with us and go over rules and procedures and everything that they do, what is allowed, what isn't allowed. How does, for example, a council member maneuver through that? How does community maneuver through that? And what they look for when they deliberate on things. I just think it's important that not only we know that as a body, especially if anything has changed, but I feel like it's important that we know that as a body, but also the community should know it too. So then everybody, if they have any questions or need to know how that works, even to the point to where what even makes sense to take something to the ethics committee, what they look for, what they know is not going to come to anything. So I would like to hear that more. I would like to hear more about that. So just hoping the body would like to hear more about that as well. Also, I am hosting a pre-Thanksgiving community event in Bethel Gardens where it's for everyone, but it's also to feed the community. So if you do not want your turkey, I would like it. I know it's supposed to go to the homeless, but this is what we're also gonna feed that as well. So thank you. I appreciate that so much. And that's all I have.
Councilman Alshire?
I don't have anything this evening.
Councilwoman Burnett?
Huge thank you to Hagerstown professional firefighters, Local 1605, HFD, and the Operation Warm group for their continued commitment to our community's children. Yesterday, we gave out 155 new coats to the students at Salem Elementary. And this has been a 13-year partnership with Operation Warm, where 2,500 coats has been provided to the kids for free. And I'm glad to have participated again this year. And our very own Wes Decker had a chance to help out some little kids with coats and gave him quite a bit of a lip because they wanted particular colors and Wes asked wanted to give them something else. But I would encourage everyone next year to participate. It's such a great program, and there's so many kids that just saying hi, and some of these kids are excited to see people in government. So and the fire truck, that's the big thing. And then they're like, okay, you can get away from me, but the fire truck's a big thing. So that's all. Thank you.
I didn't mention it last week, I should have. Last week, the city of Hagerstown hosted the Maryland House Appropriations Committee at Mayor's Park, and I want to thank Mayor's Park for hosting us and having a great luncheon. I also want to thank Jill Thompson, Director of Planning and Economic Development, and Jim Kirchable with the Greater Hagerstown Committee with the great slideshow and the pitch that we made to the House Appropriations Committee to fund things here. And they put on a great show and very informative. And also they got a tour of Meredith Park as well as different locations within the city. And I just want to thank them for coming and listening. And that's it for me. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion on any items this evening? Okay, we're adjourned.
Hello and welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker, joined by City Administrator Scott Nicewarner. Always a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you.
Pleasure's all mine, Wes.
Oh my goodness, I love how you turn the tables just that quickly. I've lost complete control already.
Yep. So I'm not on here very much.
So a work session this evening with 8 different agenda items. I think certainly all of them important in their own right, but perhaps we can hit some of the highlights here in terms of those that I sort of circled. And I think I would start with the opioid restitution fund, just because it seems to be a rather complicated subject in many ways. And we certainly had some light shown on that throughout the course of that agenda item. And coming from outside of here, I think that helped to get a little perspective. But what was your main takeaway on that? Or what should people who are watching take away from that?
Well, I think you're right. It has been kind of a moving target, not to the fault of anybody. I just think in the legal process, it's just been it's been so dynamic as far as, you know, who settles, who wants to go to trial, you know, what the settlement involves. So, you know, this formula that Avery talked about, I know that was debated a long time downstate, and really what it ultimately comes down to, and I think it was Councilman Alshire that made the point, is that you want people that know where the need is to be the ones that help decide where the money goes. You don't need government to do that. You certainly want government's involvement in it, but you truly need to get a group of people together that understand the environment. The health department, obviously, for one, but there are other community stakeholders, I think, that should be involved in that. And get those people together and try to come up with a plan to address as much of the need as possible. It is fairly restrictive to obviously opioid restitution.
Right.
So you have to be careful where you spend that money and make sure that it's not bleeding over into, you know, mental health or into other types of addiction. But I think now it's that the whole process has matured enough that we're going to be able to have a much clearer direction on how to move forward. And the mayor and I will do that next week.
And the suggestion then was to create a committee,
right?
As you alluded to, with experts,
right,
who have the knowledge, right, of where this funding needs to go and where it would be most effective,
right?
How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's something we'll talk to the county about. I think the county, being that they've got the vast majority of the money that's being sent. I think we need to speak with them because, again, it was made, the mayor made it clear, and Councilman Alshire, that the juxta of the problem obviously is going to be in your largest municipality, which is Hagerstown. You don't want to not include the other municipalities because there could be programs large enough that would benefit the county as a whole. But I think it has to be a joint discussion, including with members of the community that really know what they're talking about, not just us, you know, government people.
Yeah, which again is part of the point of creating that committee.
Right, exactly.
Certainly.
Exactly.
Another one of the items on the agenda, the review of the amended rules of procedure.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that Councilmember Alshire has had strong feelings about. Certainly, he offered some options and some alternatives for the city to explore at the last work session. And then, of course, you know, taking a look at the rules of procedure as they stand now and presented at the meeting earlier this evening were some of those amendments based on the suggestions from the week prior. Do you feel like we've made some good progress in that area, at least from where you stand on this, and what your mindset is on what is attempting to be is attempting to be accomplished with that?
Yeah, I think it becomes trying to make sure that you're fair, and I think
I think what the rules and procedures and what certainly citizen comments is supposed to do is supposed to advance issues that the city is under the control of.
Right.
And any that aren't, they can be directed in another way. But letting those people that have the interest in the city and what the city is able to discuss and able to have some jurisdiction over, and not waste the time of the others that and not waste the time of the others that don't have germane.
Right.
But at the same time, you also want to make sure you protect the rights of people to be, to be able to speak.
Right.
And I think that it's also important, there's the distinction with public hearings. Public hearings can take are much more complex than just general city comments. So I think that was good that that's separated out of there. But it's just a way to try to be fair to people and to make sure that the folks that should be heard as it relates to city business are able to be heard and not waste a lot of time, waste a lot of the public's time or the people that sit in here and that come, which, we are very fortunate that we've been able to have that increase of participation in here instead of having to deal with it on social media. But by the same token, you want it to be actionable information, and the mayor is very flexible when it comes to putting things on the agenda. And if it's something that certainly would warrant a work session in the future, it'll go on.
I'm going to go in a different direction with this a little bit, because I know in your leadership role with the Maryland Municipal League, you rub a lot of elbows, you learn a lot about what goes on in other municipalities throughout the state. What do you think it would take to get to the point where there would be no more citizen comments? I know we're certainly trying to, and I'm not throwing that out. I'm just saying that with everything that's transpired in today's world and continues to transpire with a lot of grandstanding for social media and things like that, where people aren't doing, or aren't here to advance what the government has a handle on and can advance. Because it's not a requirement that the city provides this forum.
Not at all, but I think it would say a lot for government if there was ever a time when you did not allow citizens to comment in an open venue. That's my opinion. That's not anybody sitting here.
No, that's fine.
Necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think it's a testament that people want to be heard for various reasons.
Sure.
And that's okay. I just think that the forum to do that in needs to be better defined, which this council has tried to do.
Right.
And of which we will obviously support. But citizen comments are, in my opinion, a very necessary part of our democracy and part of our way of life. And one way or another, there needs to be that avenue to do it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier with the public hearings. With them, everything is much more structured.
Right.
Because it all relates to that. And I think we're trying to get a little more of that to take place with citizen comments.
Correct.
So that they can be productive. And then if something shows up on the agenda later, or it's something where a staff member can get back to a member of the public, which happens now on many occasions.
Right.
So just to kind of keep that going in that positive way. The other agenda item, the final one, the study period coming to an end for 149 North Potomac Street. Certainly, there were high hopes from the council for that particular building. The study period has not played out well in terms of the city making that investment and going forward, as we heard outlined in the meeting itself. What's your feeling on that building at this point, and where does the city go from here? Because the building will continue to sit there whether the city owns it or not. And I think to Councilmember Alshire's point, and probably most of those on the council, that's what they were attempting to do, was to revitalize this building in some way, or get it to the point where they could get it into an investor's hands.
If you're a private developer using your own money or using investors' money, it's one thing. You might want to take a chance and roll the dice on that building. I think the intent was pure when it came to what council was trying to do with that building. A lot of us have a lot of good memories in that building, and could see a lot of potential in that building. But when you're dealing with taxpayers' money, I think there comes a time that they discussed here tonight where you have to just make a decision. The initial investment of $2.5 million, that's one thing. The additional costs, of which I think conservatively we're in, $8 million, $10 million. I think that's conservative. Usually with buildings like that, you never know what you're going to end up with even after that structural analysis is done. But I think council just made the decision, and in my opinion, it was the correct one, to terminate it and terminate the contract and see what the owner has yet to go. I think it's a prime piece of real estate, that if a developer with some deep pockets has something they'd like to do with it, I'd like to see I'd like to see an attempt made on that building, or it just needs to be demoed and dealt with in that way. But I think the council, in my opinion, was very wise in not using the taxpayers' money in this day and age to take a risk any further with that building.
What kind of feedback had you heard since that announcement had come out that the city would attempt at least to take a look at this building and go through the study period? What types of things did you hear from the public at all?
To be honest with you, I didn't hear a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
And what I did hear was obviously not that folks did not want low-income housing to go in there.
Yeah.
They didn't want additional social services in there. I heard that quite a few times. But by the same token, I think there was an overall hope that could be put to a very productive use.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were, the sentimental value of the Y, of the old Y, was there for a lot of those people. But sentiment is not worth, multi millions of dollars and trying to recover. So, how with public opinion goes, you're going to hear, it depends on what side you drop on, and you're going to hear as much on the one side as you are on the other, especially when it comes to taxpayer money. I think ultimately that was the key to this, in my opinion, that the taxpayer money is too valuable to take that big of a risk. And I think the way they went about it by having the study period was a appropriate way to go about it. And I think they did the right thing.
Yeah, I feel like at a different point in time, perhaps this might have gotten a green light, but certainly not now.
15 years ago.
Yeah. That's.
That place has been empty 20 years, maybe.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a crapshoot out the gate.
Yeah.
And again, I think they were very wise in what they did tonight.
And I think to do it transparently, the way they did for everyone to understand what is in that building at this point, or what it takes to get that building up to speed, is positive in the end, because now everybody understands that, instead of just going, when's somebody going to do something with that building?
Well, and I can tell you, in all our mind's eyes that ever spent time in a Y, we still have that picture of what the Y was, back 25, 30 years ago.
Yep.
I can tell you, when I went in there, it almost brought tears to my eyes, as dilapidated and in such in bad shape that building is, and I did not think it was in as bad a shape as what it has come to be analyzed as being, and it's sad. I mean, it's very sad,
is.
but you know, we got to move forward, and hopefully we can find a better remedy for that property.
Well, now that trick or treat's over with,
Shoo.
I know you're upset about that.
I'd have trick or treat every week if I could.
Fortunately, no kids blew away on Friday night,
It
as
was
windy as it was.
It got windy. It got windy.
But
I do want to mention one thing, Wes.
Yes.
Go back to the Vote 16 initiative.
okay,
It should make the public's heart happy to have a child advocate like Zoe Burnett, who was willing to take a stand and be committed in this day and age to a cause, whether you agree with it or not. And it's, you know, it's great to see what Zoe has done and the advocacy she's had. The Hagerstown Youth Council is the same way. Seeing these young kids, you know, it makes you think that maybe we're not going to be in such bad shape once you and I are, you know, walking with canes in the home. That you know, someone can have that type of a passion at that age instead of sitting in front of the TV, you know, playing, you know, Fortnite or whatever. You know, she's actually out and advocating for what she feels and what a lot of people feel is a very valid opportunity to allow 16-year-olds to vote. I have heard from several city managers that is going to be something that this group that is gaining in voice is going to have in Annapolis. It'll be interesting to see what kind of you know, footing they get in Annapolis. But it just, you know, I just want to give a shout out to Zoe and also to the kids that are on the Hagerstown Youth Council that are you know, about halfway through this term with the youth council. That there's a lot of good happening out there with the youth, and she is definitely one good example of it.
and I hope that doesn't deter her or any members of the
Nope.
youth council. Use that as fuel going forward,
Yep.
because you're going to meet with adversity in this world. And if it's something like that and you can find another way to get to your goal in the
100%.
end, that is going to be helpful,
Yep.
you know, throughout the course of one's life. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, she has done was here again this evening
Yeah.
to hear what was discussed. And unfortunately, I mean, for us, it's really out of our hands.
It's out of our hands at this point,
So-
but that's why they have to go. I mean, that's why they go the next step to the
That's right.
legislature.
That's right.
Because we're not the only municipality. There are several that
Yeah.
run through their county election boards, and that's all in flux too. There's been legislation about, you know, county election boards not wanting to do in municipal elections anymore.
Yeah.
And that's got voted down. I think the last two assembly sessions. We'll see what happens this time if they bring it back.
Yeah, I know there are strong opinions on both sides of that, whether 16-year-olds should vote or not, and we've
Sure.
heard one from this table, certainly. But at the same time, with the small percentage of people who vote anymore, it doesn't seem like it's the worst thing in the world to open it up to those who would want to get out there and you know,
Sure.
vote. I mean, that doesn't
Sure.
seem like the worst thing in the world,
No,
at
I mean
least
you
to
have
me.
you have a city of you know 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And your leading vote getter for council gets 4,000 votes.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah. Earlier, I was talking about trick or treat. Just looking forward to the holidays that are coming up. I didn't know if you know, you want to hit anything that's coming
Oh
up.
goodness.
I know you don't have anything in front of you to necessarily point to dates or anything like that, but just to give people an overview and the flavor of what's to come.
I don't think I've ever seen in all my years here, either as a resident or a employee here at the city, a more full schedule of holiday events than what I saw just this afternoon that Brittany and Leah are doing. I mean, it is literally multiple days through the week between Thanksgiving, starting with Holly Fest.
Yes.
And the tree lighting, which will all happen, I think, before Thanksgiving, all the way through to the end. Chris Kindle Market, the downtown businesses participating in the window displays and all of that. That'll all be on the website. It'll all be on social media. I'll make sure that the mayor highlights it every week. And yeah, it's going to be jam packed starting week before Thanksgiving. So stay tuned for that.
Well, Scott, appreciate your time and weighing in on all the topics and everything, whether I put it on the tee for you or whether I threw you a curveball, you were all over it. So
My
thank
time
you.
is your time, Wes.
Oh, my goodness.
Your time is my time.
I'll tell you what, well, our time is up for this evening. Thanks for spending some of your time with us. Thanks for watching this evening. I'll see you next time on Council Wrap. For now, that is a wrap.